Hello. So, in the last lecture we talked about the rotation matrices and also the Euler angles. To give you overview of what happened this week, we started with rigid bodies and argued that it has 6 degrees of freedom, and these 6 degrees of freedom were essentially divided in sets of 3, one for the fixed point on the rigid body and 3 for the orientation, and the orientation was described in terms of a transformation matrix which is orthogonal, which requires 3 parameters. Okay. So, that is how the remaining 3 generalized coordinates would be assigned, and which is the best method to do that depends on your application, but in physics most common set is called as Euler angles set. Okay. In today's class, what I am going to do is, remember, in the motion of rigid bodies, it is basically now the 3 vectors I prime, j prime and k prime, they are basically moving with rigid body. So, we are essentially describing the motion of these 3 vectors as they rotate and change their orientation in space, and this basically is needed in calculating the dynamics of the system. So, this is why today we will talk about the rate of change of vector in rotating frames. Okay. This is the objective of today. So, first I will talk about rate of change of vector and then specialize it to a very special case where the rotation axis is fixed, only the angle of rotation is changing. This is a standard rotating frame problem which we will do in this lecture. Okay. Now, let me start with an example. Think of a particle P which is moving along a trajectory, okay, and this trajectory is seen by 2 different frames. One is S frame and another one is S prime frame, okay, and S frame is basically has its own coordinate axis x and y, and the S prime frame have coordinate axis which are shown here in blue as x prime and y prime, and both these observers in these frames, they are looking at the particle's motion. Now, the position vector here r, see, when we talk about vectors, it does not matter which coordinate system you are looking at those vectors from, those are same vectors. So, r vector, when you write it in vector form, you are actually writing it in a coordinate free form. So, it does not matter whether you are looking at it from S frame or S prime frame, but that is not true when you start talking about the components. Components are basically you take this r vector and drop perpendicular on x axis and y axis to get its components, but then S prime frame will also do the same thing, but use its own axis x prime y prime to drop perpendicular to. Okay, right. So, that is why the components will be different, and this is what we in fact saw in the last 2 lectures, that even though as a vector these 2 entities are same, the coordinates or components, they are different, and the components are related to each other by this rotation matrix. Okay. So, the components in S prime frame, this is what this square bracket would mean, is equal to this transformation matrix multiplied by components in S frame. Okay. Same thing happens with velocities. When the particle travels along this trajectory, the velocity we know is tangential to the trajectory, and that velocity vector will be seen by both frames S and S prime, and if theta is constant, that means both these frames are stationary with respect to each other, then V and V prime are actually the same vectors, but their components will be of course different, and the components are of course again connected by the same transformation matrix. Remember, it is a vector. So, basically V prime in S prime, the components of V prime in S prime will be equal to same matrix multiplied by components of V vector as seen in S. Okay. But that will not be true once you go to S prime frame which is actually moving. Let us assume that this S prime frame. So, let me start by giving you an example. Look at this picture here. So, you have view from S frame and view from S prime frame. Of course, S frame will also look at S prime frame. So, when S frame looks at S prime frame, what we will see is the coordinate axis of S prime will be rotating clockwise. I am going to assume that S prime rotates about the origin with a constant angular speed. Okay. So, in this frame you would see the axis x prime y prime rotating in a clockwise direction. Okay. And then there is this particle whose motion also we will see, but in S prime frame what will happen? S prime frame of course looks at his own axis and also the axis of S frame, but what will happen to axis of S frame in S prime frame? Those axes will appear to be rotating, but in the clockwise direction, okay, whereas here it was anti-clockwise direction, but in this case S prime will see S's coordinate axis turning in the clockwise direction. And if this particle in S prime frame is simply moving along x prime axis, okay, that is what is happening. How is the trajectory seen by both is the question. So, this particle of course will just be moving along x prime axis. What would be its motion in this frame? And you can see here that it will trace out. So, if I stop this, now you see what happens. Here the black axis they are turning in the clockwise direction, whereas the particle simply is travelling along the x prime. In this frame the blue axis are basically x prime and y prime, and the particle remains on x prime axis, but x prime axis itself is turning, and moreover the particle is going away from the origin, and that is why it will trace out a spiral like this. Okay. So, this is the motion that these two would see, but now look at what happens. Here the particle is simply moving in x prime direction. So, its velocity is along x prime direction. That velocity vector will be seen here along x prime direction, but wait, if you look at the trajectory of the particle here, the velocity defined by S frame will be tangential to the trajectory, and that would be in this direction, not along the x direction. So, when the frames are moving, the velocity vectors are not same, okay, their trajectories look completely different, and if their trajectories are looking different, then their velocities also will be different. Remember, the position vector remains same. The position vector here and position vector here, they are same, they are pointing to the location of the particle, but the velocity vectors are not same. Okay. Let me do that calculation. So, here for example, the particle only sits on this axis here. Okay. So, particle is there. I am going to assume that theta is omega t. Omega is a constant number. So, basically the rotation is uniform. Okay. Now, in S prime frame, this is your x prime axis. What are the components of r prime vector? So, components of r vector or r prime vector as seen from S prime, they are just 80 times I prime. Okay. And that if I write in component form, then that would look like 80 along x prime direction and 0 along y prime direction. Those are components seen by S prime there. Now, you calculate velocity. So, velocity is nothing but time derivative of this. Now, would be simply a constant velocity along x prime direction. Okay. So, that is a I prime, that is what you will get. Okay. The same vector when seen from S frame I can calculate. So, r seen from S frame, that would be equal to the transformation which I wrote in the previous slide, but now of course, we are writing the inverse transformation. So, I will take the inverse. So, I put that inverse matrix here into the coordinates in the S prime frame, that gives me 80 times cos theta in sin theta. So, this basically, and that you can see here very easily, that if the particle is here, if the particle is here, then quite obviously this angle is theta. So, you can immediately see the distance from origin is 80 and the vector to that point is basically cos theta and sin theta. Okay. What about velocity vector? Velocity vector is also along x prime direction and it has a magnitude of a. Exactly like r s, the v prime, I will call that as a v prime also will transform, and the components of v prime in S frame were a 0, but components of v prime S prime frame, and components of v prime in S frame will be a cos theta and sin theta as seen by S. Now, let me calculate the velocity in the S frame. In the S frame, we calculate dr by dt, but this one, look here, that is basically this a t into cos theta and sin theta, but theta is not constant anymore, it is omega t. So, basically you would get two terms there. The first take a derivative of this magnitude, that gives you this, and then you also have to take a derivative of the vector part there. Okay. So, that will give me this vector here. Let me rewrite this. What is this? If you compare this vector with this vector here, that is basically v prime, that is dr by dt as seen in S prime. Okay. And this vector here, the second part, I will write it slightly differently. So, this is our xy plane. Assume that there is a k cap direction which is perpendicular to the xy plane, then I will write this as omega k cap cross a t. So, omega is here, a t has gone here, and then if you take the cross product of these two, I should get this. Of course, theta is omega t. Okay. And you recognize this vector here, this vector here, this vector here is nothing but your r vector there. Okay. So, this is basically omega k cross r. So, this is the relationship that we get. The velocity measured in S frame, not seen, velocity measured in S frame and velocity measured in S prime frame, they are different. Okay. They are not same vector anymore, and the difference between the two is basically omega k cross r. Now, you take the r out of the entire vector equation. If you take this r out of this entire vector equation, it is basically d by dt time derivative in S frame is same as time derivative in S prime frame plus omega k altogether can call it as omega vector cross the same vector. Okay. So, this is basically the identity that connects. So, this part here is essentially coming because the coordinate system is rotating. Okay. Otherwise, if omega is 0, then as I said in the first slide, the two velocities would be same, only the components will be different. Okay. Fine. Now, remember there is a slight, this is a slight tricky part, but you should remember this. When I wrote S here, that meant the components with respect to S. What is the meaning of this one here? This S prime with a square bracket there is basically the measurement of velocity in S prime frame. Okay. this is simply a vector equation. This vector equation can be either seen from S or it can be seen from S prime. What I mean is this, look at this next slide where the same diagram, but now I have plotted the velocities. Okay. Here the velocity vector is shown by this red arrow, that is the velocity of the particle measured by S prime frame. Okay. And here the velocity is basically this black arrow is a velocity measured by S frame, and these two vectors are different. Remember, r vector and r prime vector they are same, but v vector and v prime vector they are not same, and that is because one frame is moving and the moving frame will add its own contribution to the time rate time rate of change of the vector. Okay. So, what you would see is basically something like this. Here what you would see is basically velocity vector, which is shown as red, remains in x prime direction. This red vector is seen by S frame 2 with different components, and that is shown here. That is the velocity measured in S prime frame. The black arrow is basically tangential to this spiral, okay, and that is the velocity measured in S frame, but this same velocity vector can also be seen from S prime frame, which is shown here, and these two vectors are same, the black one here and the black one here, these are basically velocities measured in S frame, and it is a vector, but it can have different components in different frames. That is separate issue, but what is important to note is that the velocity vectors are different. Okay. Now, let me try to get this result slightly formally. Okay. So, what will happen is this, if I have a g vector, okay, and this g vector is basically seen by two different coordinate systems, and here we would have, so this is delta g prime and this is okay. So, in two different frames I see change in the g is seen by S prime frame as delta g prime, the change in the vector seen by S is delta g, and the difference between the two is basically this delta g rotation, which is coming purely because S prime is rotating with respect to S frame. If I go back, that is exactly same equation as this one here g. So, if I take out the dr, then of course, this will be dr, this will be dr in S prime, and then omega dt will be delta theta into k cap. Okay. That this is basically the change coming because of the rotation part, okay, rotation of frames part. Okay. So, now the identity that we want to prove is this, delta g is equal to delta g prime plus delta theta into n cap, that is the axis of rotation between the two frames, into the or cross product with g vector itself. So, this is the identity that we want to prove. Okay. Delta g prime is the change in the vector seen by S prime frame, delta g is the change seen by S frame. Okay. Now, the same g vector will be seen by two different frames connected by the transformation matrix, the rotation matrix. Then what I want is, after some time, after delta time delta t, this g vector changes. So, the components seen by S prime also will change, but during that time the rotation matrix also changes. Remember, theta was omega t. So, after time delta t it will be omega t plus omega delta t. Okay. So, this one is also changing. I will do a little less general proof, where I will assume that n cap remains same, only the angle is changing, but in general this identity will remain true for even all kinds of changes in R in the R matrix. Okay. I will write this G plus, do a Taylor expansion, that will give you G plus delta G. Delta G is small change as seen by S frame, and R multiplied by this G plus delta G prime, but that is now seen by S prime frame. Okay. Right. Now, let me look at this part here, this part, the rotation part. If you look at the rotation part, I will use the Rodrigues formula, its identity plus 1 minus cos theta. If you remember the Rodrigues identity, it is 1 minus cos theta plus delta theta into Sn square plus sin theta plus delta theta into Sn. Okay. Use the standard, you know, cos A plus B is basically cos A cos B minus sin A sin B. Okay. So, we can use that identity here. When I use this, I would get cos of delta theta, and I will also get sin of delta theta. I am going to assume that delta theta is infinitesimal, in which case your cos of delta theta will become 1 and sin of delta theta will become delta theta. So, I am just retaining the first non-zero order there. Put this back into the equation. So, basically this will be I, and then I will get cos theta into cos delta theta, but that is same as cos theta because cos of delta theta is 1. So, I will rewrite this as I plus 1 minus cos theta into Sn square, but the second term will be sin theta into sin of delta theta, that term I am writing here, okay, separately. Similarly, from here I would get sin theta into cos of delta theta, but that is just the sin theta into Sn, and the second term would be cos theta into sin of delta theta, but that is delta theta there. Okay. Fine. And the reason for writing it like this is very clear. Can you identify this? Or this is basically nothing but r n cap theta, and plus, now let me rewrite this. In this part, all I have done is I have added one Sn and subtracted one Sn. Okay. So, you get Sn plus cos theta minus 1 times Sn plus sin theta times Sn square. Now, I want you people to prove this identity. Okay. Sn cube. So, take Sn square we have already calculated, calculate Sn cube. If you calculate Sn cube, you will find that it is exactly equal to minus Sn. Remember, n cap is a unit vector. If you use the fact that n cap is a unit vector, you will immediately get Sn cube equal to minus of Sn. So, I will replace this Sn by minus Sn cube, and if I do that, out of that minus Sn cube, I will take one Sn out of the bracket. This Sn also goes out, leaving behind one identity matrix there and one Sn from here. And again you can see that this one is nothing but r n cap theta. So, I will take that r n cap theta outside the bracket, leaving inside identity from here, delta theta times Sn from here. Okay. So, this is what you would get. This is the change that happens in the rotation matrix itself. Fine. So far so good. Now, let us use this in our identity. So, there you go. So, GT seen from S, this is this one, and this is where I want to make the substitution. So, G plus delta G seen by S will be R n cap theta plus delta theta, and G plus G prime delta G prime seen by S prime. Expand this. If I expand this, I do not want to keep the terms which are second order in infinitesimal. Remember, there is one infinitesimal here and there is one infinitesimal here. So, the product of these two I will discard. So, that leaves me with 3 terms, out of which the one term r n cap theta I g, but that is same as this g, okay, because this is g seen by S prime multiplied by transformation matrix gives me g seen from S. So, that will get cancelled, leaving you with only the 2 terms, and those 2 terms here are delta theta S n r n, then delta g, and then you have r n I and delta g. And if you interpret this, that is very easy. So, this one will be, this part here is r operating on this gives me delta g prime seen by S, then all this thing is here, and this part alone I can write this as delta theta. Remember, S n multiplying a vector is basically n cap cross that vector, this we did write in the beginning. So, I will write this as delta n cap cross delta g prime, and then add to this delta g prime seen by S. Okay. So, now on this side of the identity I have delta g seen by S, this whole vector seen from S, and this vector seen from S. So, basically it is a single vector equation now, and that is what we have here. So, that is the vector that we have here, and this part now we see has actually come only because there was a change in the rotation matrix as the time progresses, because the transformation matrix changed along with the coordinate system there. So, this is the vector equation connecting the rate of change of a vector seen by one frame is equal to seen by rotating frame plus the effect that comes because of the rotation itself, right. And then of course, you can divide by delta t, then you would get dg by dt seen from S, dg by dt seen from S prime plus delta theta by delta t would be your omega times n cap is basically omega vector cross g vector. Okay. So, that is the identity that gives you rate of change of vector when seen from different frames there. Okay. Let us put this to use. If I take for example, a frame S which is inertial frame and S prime is rotating with respect to S, the same geometry, we will assume that they still have a common origin. S prime is rotating with respect to S, okay, and the rotation vector is omega, which is basically omega k cap, and omega is constant number. So, the rotation is uniform. If I use this, then what do I get? If there is a particle in S, S is inertial. So, basically Newton's second law holds, F is equal to m a. What happens in the rotating frame? Rotating frame is not inertial, quite obviously, because it is accelerating, it is basically non inertial frame. Now, r is the same vector, it is seen by r and r prime both. Velocity vectors are not, velocity vector is rate of change of r. So, rate of change of r, that is v, is rate of change of r seen by S prime, that is v prime plus omega cross r. Okay. And now, we want to calculate the acceleration by taking one more derivative. So, take one more derivative here to calculate acceleration. So, when I take dv by dt as seen from S frame, remember it is a dv by dt, not dv prime. So, dv by dt, rate of change of vector v, remember v and v prime are not same vectors, unlike r and r prime, they are different vectors. So, here first we will concentrate only on v vector. So, dv by dt seen by S is dv by dt seen from S prime plus omega cross v. Okay. But I know v vector is v prime plus omega cross r. So, let me substitute that here, and when I substitute that here, I will get dv prime by dt seen from S prime then omega cross dr by dt seen from S prime, that is basically v prime, and here omega cross v prime, that is basically omega cross v prime, and there is a omega cross, remember v was v prime plus omega cross r. So, these are all the terms, and you recognize these two terms are same. So, basically this would be acceleration. So, this is the acceleration seen by S prime frame. S prime frame, the acceleration is not dv by dt as seen from S prime, it is dv prime by dt seen by S prime, that is the acceleration in S prime. So, that is the acceleration in S prime, that is 2 times omega cross v prime and plus omega cross r. Now, what happens to the force equation? Force equation obviously will not hold in the non inertial frame, but I can write m a prime. So, that is a prime is basically m a. So, you have a, and I am taking all these terms to the other side, multiplying it by m. So, this will be m a minus 2 times m omega cross v prime minus m omega cross r, and m a we know is exactly equal to f, because in S frame this relationship holds. So, in our rotating frame, when we are inside the rotating frame, now what do we see? We see this force, we see this acceleration, they are not equal, and then we say that the difference is basically pseudo forces. The pseudo forces we will not see the source of pseudo forces, because they are pseudo in nature, but we can identify those terms. This term here is called as Coriolis force, and this term here is in fact recognizable, it is m omega square r, that is basically centrifugal force. Okay. Let me apply this idea in the next slide. So, in the first problem in the first example, we had this particle which is just sitting on the x prime axis. Okay. In x prime frame, it is basically not moving. If it is not moving, then it just stays there in x prime frame, but according to S frame, the particle actually is doing uniform circular motion, because your x prime is basically going around in the counterclockwise direction. So, there is a uniform circular motion as seen from the S frame. Now, in the S frame, quite obviously it is inertial frame. So, if it is going in a circle, there must be a centripetal force. Think of it as a simple ball, and it must be tied to the origin, so that it can perform the circular motion, and if you do that, the string will have a tension. So, you see that tension there. Okay. This is what you see in the S prime frame, in the S frame, which is inertial, and you say fine, there is a centripetal force and there is a uniform circular motion, I understand this, and this T must be equal to mv square by r. But from the point of view of S prime, there is a surprising situation, because in S prime frame the particle is stationary, it is tied to the origin by a string, and string has a tension. So, as far as S prime frame is concerned, we see that the string has tension, which is net force on the particle, but the particle is not moving. There must be some other force on this particle, and that is the pseudo centrifugal force basically, and here the T must be counterbalanced in S prime frame by the pseudo force, which was the centrifugal force. Okay. So, we can of course immediately calculate this. Omega vector is pointing out, and then you can calculate omega cross r. Okay. Omega cross r, basically r vector is like this. So, omega cross r, so will be pointing in this direction, and then you take one more cross product to show that this is basically. So, your tension T must be exactly equal to the centrifugal force in magnitude, and they must be opposite in direction, and that is how the net force will become 0 in my non inertial frame. So, somehow I managed to save Newton's second law, but by adding some centrifugal forces. What about Coriolis force in this case? Coriolis force will be 0 because in our S prime frame the particle is stationary. If the particle is stationary, then of course V prime is 0, and remember the Coriolis force was proportional to V prime. So, that would be 0. Here is the second case which we considered in the beginning, where there was a spiral motion. In case of spiral motion in S prime, r vector was a times t times I. Okay. Sorry, it's a so this one, yeah. Let me take this out. Right. So, V prime vector is basically a times I. The particle is only moving along I prime direction, and what happens in the S frame? In the S frame, it traces out a outgoing spiral. Okay, fine. But then on this one, what would happen is, because it is tracing out a spiral, somebody must be pulling it in the tangential direction. The velocity in the tangential direction is increasing, but there is no velocity in tangential direction here. So, whatever force that was pulling this particle must be counterbalanced by the Coriolis force, and we can calculate that Coriolis force here, which is basically twice mv omega cross v prime. Remember, v prime now is not 0, v prime is in the direction of I cap there, and it is a constant velocity. And you take this cross product, and you can see that there will be minus 2 m a omega j prime, which is basically pointing downwards. So, in S prime, the motion would have been spiral, there would be upward force on the particle, that upward force will get balanced by the Coriolis force, and hence in S prime frame the particle remains on the I prime axis. There is no velocity in the direction of j prime. Okay. So, this is another example, but the most useful application of this is in fact in connection with the Earth's rotation itself. So, if you have Earth which is continuously rotating about its own axis, basically what that means is we ourselves are sitting in S prime frame. We are in the rotating frame without actually realizing that we are in the rotating frame. We do not see much of effects of rotation. Apparently, if I do some experiments here, to reasonable accuracy, I see Newton's laws hold. Okay. So, how do I know that Earth is rotating? Okay. In fact, centuries ago, people thought that Earth was not rotating, but everything else was rotating. Okay. There are very many simple experiments to figure out that Earth is rotating. Of course, sun goes around Earth, but otherwise you can see this nice picture from Wikipedia. This is a basically night picture. It is taken with a very long exposure. So, all these stars, they seem to go around in the sky, okay, just like sun would have done. But now you see, you can identify those circles there, and you can identify a point which does not spin or go around in circle. So, from the center of the Earth, in that direction where you see that non-moving point, basically that is the direction in which Earth is spinning. So, everything seems to be spinning in the opposite direction in the sky, okay. And this is basically picture from somewhere away from the North Pole. That is why you see this here, okay. If you are at the equator, you probably will not see that, because because of the curvature of the Earth. Okay. Now, this rotation speed, that of course we can quickly calculate, that is one rotation 2 pi radians per day, that is the rotation speed. So, that is basically nothing but 2 pi divided by number of seconds in a day, and you can immediately calculate that. That is basically 7.27 into 10 to the power minus 5 radians per second. Okay. That seems like a very small number, it indeed is a very small number. This is in terms of RPM is basically 6.94 into 10 to the power minus 4 rotations per minute. That is 10 to the power minus 4 or order of 10 to the power minus 3 rotations per minute. We are used to much more rotation than that. For example, your car's engine, usually we talk about rotations of the order of 1000 rotations per minute and so on. If nothing else, if I spin about myself, I probably can complete one rotation in 1 second. So, that is basically 60 RPM. If you take dancers, they would pirouette around themselves with much higher speed than this. So, it turns out that the earth's rotation speed is very slow, at least the angular speed is extremely small. That is one of the reasons why we do not see all those effects in our daily lives. Okay? We do not see the Coriolis force in a very big way, or the centrifugal force in a very big way here. So, the point that we are showing here is basically where I am standing. This is at IIT Guwahati. This is basically the map of IIT Guwahati, and you can see this beautiful Brahmaputra there. Now, this is where the physics department is, and this is where we actually do the calculations. So, in our surroundings, we set up a coordinate system, and typical coordinate system that I set up is basically the z vector we always take in a upward direction, and then other two axes are basically along the plane that we locally see. Locally, we do not see the curvature of the earth, we only see earth as a flat one. So, if I put my x axis, because we are in rotating frame, I should call it as x prime axis. X prime axis, I will put it in the east direction, okay, and in the north direction, I will put the y prime axis, and z prime axis is of course coming out of the board there from the map. Now, the same situation when seen from outside the earth will look like this. The z prime, which is up for us, is basically a radial vector. It will be a radial vector joining the center of the earth all the way to the surface to this point, okay. And then x prime will be parallel to latitude, okay. That is this, that is pointing in east direction, and the y prime axis will be pointing towards the north pole, but of course there is a curvature. So, it would not be directly pointing to north pole, but in that direction, that is tangential to the latitude to the longitude at that point. So, this is how the local coordinate system that we see here would look like there. Okay. What we need what we need to do is, when we want to calculate Coriolis force or centrifugal force in my local frame here, I need that omega vector. Okay. Now, how do I find that omega vector is a question, but from this diagram it is very easy to see. What would that omega vector be? That omega vector is here, okay, and this is basically omega vector. If I draw a parallel vector here, then I would see something like this. So, there you have z prime, you have y prime, and then there is a x prime. I have drawn a vector which is parallel to the omega vector. Okay. So, this is basically omega vector. What is the angle between omega vector? So, omega vector basically is in y prime z prime plane, and the angle between this omega vector and the z prime vector, that is exactly same as the angle between the radial vector. Okay. Radial vector is same as z prime, remember. So, that is the angle. Now, I know the latitude of Guwahati, that is 26 degrees, that is measured from equator. So, when you measure it from the north pole, that is basically 64 degrees. And in this room I have z prime and then I have x prime. So, basically my x prime is in that direction and the y prime is in the north direction, that would be this direction, and the omega vector makes an angle of 64 degrees with the vertical, the local vertical. The local vertical is same as radial from the center of the earth. So, basically the omega vector A is something like this, that's vertical and you make a 64 degree angle there, and that would be your omega axis, and we all are actually going around that omega axis. Okay. So, in that sense. Okay. So, once I figure out where the omega vector is in my local coordinate system, now I can do all the calculation. So, angle between z prime and omega, that omega vector, that is basically 64 degrees. So, I can in my local coordinate system I can write omega as sin theta. So, this is the angle between z and the omega is blue vector here. So, that would be component will be cos theta z prime sin theta y prime, that is your omega vector. Once I have omega vector, now I can do all the calculations. Okay. Let me first calculate the centrifugal force that you would see here in our local frame. So, centrifugal acceleration, that is just omega cross r, but wait, this r vector must be measured from not from the surface of the earth, this r vector must be measured from the center of the earth. Okay. So, this r vector roughly is equal to the radius of the earth. So, this one will work out to, now I have given you omega vector in the last slide, I will ask you people to do this calculation. It is just a simple two cross products. So, it will be r omega square sin theta into minus cos theta y cap plus sin theta z cap, and we also know that whatever this cross product is, it is perpendicular to omega. Only thing that we have established is that this cross product is in y z plane or y prime z prime plane. It actually is in the same y prime z prime plane and it is basically perpendicular to the omega vector. So, remember I had drawn omega vector like this in our local frame, the centrifugal acceleration would be pointing this way. Okay. It is pointing away from the earth. Okay. It is basically going to be opposite in some sense to the gravity, gravity is pointing down. Okay. But then you can calculate this. Remember omega was a very small number, r is a large number, but omega is small number, it is squared to. It turns out that because this magnitude is of course 1. So, the magnitude of this is r omega square into whatever sin theta factor. Sin theta factor will be maximum at equator, that will be equal to 1 when theta becomes pi by 2. So, maximum at equator, it turns out it is only 0.03 meters per second square, and how much is g? G is basically 9.8, that is roughly 10. So, this is in fact 0.3% of the gravitational acceleration. So, even though it seems to be pointing in this direction, the magnitude of this vector is really small. Compared to that, the vector g is roughly 300 times larger. Okay. So, the vector would be, and really speaking, the small change in the effective gravity you will not even notice. So, whenever you hang something, it is basically not exactly pointing towards the center of the earth, assuming that the earth is spherical, but it will be slightly off because of this spin of the earth, but that angle by which it will be off will be really tiny, and also the magnitude will be different, but the change in the magnitude also will be extremely small. Okay. Okay. That is this one, and then there is Coriolis force, that also we can immediately figure out. Now, we have omega vector. So, if I assume, take for example, you have a car and you are driving towards north. So, your velocity in our frame is basically V naught y cap, okay? And how much Coriolis force you would experience. Coriolis force again will be very small, because omega is small, but we can figure out the direction. Okay. If this one you are basically traveling in the northward direction, then omega cross V with a minus sign comes to x cap direction. Do this cross product again. Remember, omega vector you can always calculate. Now, it does not matter what this theta is between in the north hemisphere. So, this will be omega V naught cos theta x cap. In the northern hemisphere, this number will be positive. These two are of course magnitudes, and then there is a x cap. So, the deflection as you travel towards north will be in the eastward direction. That is basically, if you look at we traveling in the direction of north, that is towards your right, and you can now see that it really does not change the result. It does not matter which direction you are traveling here in the north hemisphere, your deflection always will be to the right. Okay. Whereas, if you go to southern hemisphere, the exactly opposite will happen. If you are traveling in a direction, you will always be deflected to the left, and this has its own consequences on a very large, because omega is small, you would not see this in a smaller this effect on a smaller scale. But for example, if you are if you have a projectile like a rocket which you are firing from one continent to the other continent, you will have to worry about this deflection there, okay, the Coriolis deflection. The other standard example would be when there is a hurricane, then you have a area of low pressure. The air tries to gush in. As air is coming in towards the central position, in all direction they all are deflected towards their right in the northern hemisphere, making them go counterclockwise in the northern hemisphere. So, whenever you look at the storm or a hurricane in the northern hemisphere, it goes counterclockwise. What happens in the southern hemisphere? Exactly opposite of that, and that is a phenomenon that we can easily observe in the weather. Fine. So, this is basically the idea of rotating frames. Here what we have learned is that whenever there is a rotating frame, so in the motion of rigid bodies, this will be applicable in the following way. Your I prime, j prime, k prime is a frame which is a rotating frame which rotates along with the rigid body, and then we want to see the rate of change of various quantities as seen from S and as seen from S prime, and some of those quantities will be vector quantities, and that is basically what we would be looking at. And the main quantity that we would look at is basically angular momentum, because remember the Newton's law for angular momentum is dl by dt is equal to torque. So, what will happen to the angular momentum when seen from the rotating frame is what will use this expression here. Okay. Fine. So, that we will do in the next week.